Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become the confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I have with me Juanita Wheeler, and let me tell you about Juanita. She's coached over 100 TEDx speakers, in addition to CEOs, entrepreneurs, authors, researchers, and changemakers to deliver presentations worthy of their great ideas. Juanita is a public speaking coach, speechwriter, the CEO and head of curation at TEDx Brisbane, and the founder of Full and Frank. Juanita has over 2 decades of speaking experience, is an adjunct lecturer for the University of Queensland, and a global fellow with Atlantic Fellows based out of Oxford University. Juanita has 3 master's degrees and 2 in business, and 1 is in social change leadership. That could be another whole podcast. She's a speaking coach, and she wants to help us today understand why speaking is so important. So the theme of our podcast today is going to be how to grow your business with public speaking. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Juanita Wheeler. Juanita, so happy to have a fellow public speaking coach on. I love it.
Yes, absolutely. It's lovely talking to you today. Thank you so much for having me, Vicki.
It's funny. I just wanted to mention that usually I wear red all December
Really?
long, and now we're into January, and so I don't have red on. We would have been twins here, matchy.
Yeah, well, red is a thing for me 365 days. So
Yes, I love.
we'll pop around in January, in December again, and we'll match then.
Yes, that's right. So we always start out with 2 easy questions. The first question is simply just tell everybody where you live. I think I kind of gave that away, but go ahead.
I live in Brisbane, Australia. So unlike the city of Brisbane in America, they pronounce it Brisbane. We pronounce it Brisbane, as though there is no vowels in the second half of the word. And it is on the east coast of Australia. So it's about a few hours north of Byron Bay, or about an hour's north of the Gold Coast, Surfers Paradise, if you're familiar with either of those.
Yes, awesome. The second is I told them all the great things you're doing today, but just give briefly a little bit about your journey that took you to that point that said, this is what I'm meant to do. This is the way that my future is going to be going in public speaking, coaching, and such.
I so love how you phrase that question, because it really is that moment where you're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing on the earth. So for me, it started, I'm a screaming introvert. So public speaking does not come to me naturally. And I was working in business. I was working in the corporate world, and my preferred mode of communication is in writing. So I was putting all my ideas in writing, really well-detailed, well-researched proposals and pitches. And then, spoiler alert, not everybody likes to read. And I would find that I would go to meetings, or it would be by the water cooler, wherever it was. And I would have this really comprehensive and frankly, very, very good idea or proposal, but someone would have a different idea that was inferior, but they were prepared to get up and champion it verbally. And that was really frustrating to me, because I kept time and time again seeing that get up. And so I realized, I mean, I sulked about that for like a month and then realized that's not helping anybody, especially me.
That's right.
And when there has to be a way to do this, even if you have introverted tendencies or, if you have a fear or a nervousness about it.
Yeah.
And I knew that I didn't want to just speak. I didn't want to flap my gums. Like I wasn't interested in that. If I was going to invest in learning how to speak, it was all going to be strategic. It was going to be about persuasive speaking. So,
Oh,
the speaking I work in, the area within public speaking I work in is persuasive speaking. So every single time you get on a stage or anyone I work with gets on a stage, there needs to be a strategic objective that has a yes at the end. And your entire presentation is about getting somebody with the power and authority to say yes to whatever your strategic objective is, to say yes.
yeah.
So then I went, okay, cool. I need to learn how to do this. So I geeked out. I've got 3 master's degrees. I like researching things. So I looked into the neuroscience and the neuroeconomics, which is the neuroscience of decision making, and persuasion theories and behavioral psychology, and went, what makes people go from not knowing something or having I'm not interested in that, to changing their mind and saying yes. And so I did the deep dive into that and started using it for myself. I used myself as the guinea pig. And then after a short while, people started saying, you're really good at this. Can you teach me how to do it? So I started doing it while I was still working in corporate, just helping people. And then when I went out on my own about 11 years ago, it was a part of what I did. I was doing strategic planning, strategic marketing, executive strategies. And part of that had to be coaching people to public speak, because it doesn't matter how good your pitch is or your strategy
No.
is if you can't deliver it and get somebody to say yes. So I just got more and more involved in it. Then I started coaching TEDx, and I took over the TEDx Brisbane license in 2015. And so I was coaching more and more TEDx speakers, using the same strategies, refining them, enhancing them, and then went, you know what? The pandemic hit. And I'm like, my favorite part of the work I do, the most transformative impact that I have in people's lives and in the world, is when I teach people with great ideas or products or services how to champion their own ideas so they can go and have a really big impact in the world. I said, you know what? I'm just going to do that full time. So I wrote a very loving breakup letter to all my existing clients and gave them 9 months notice and said, after this, I'm just going to be doing the speaker coaching, the speech writing, the public speaking strategies to grow your business or champion your idea. And now that's what I do full time.
Oh, wow. Great story. We probably could have a couple different podcasts to talk about the different aspects of that, even the TEDx piece of how you became a coach for them. So let's just get into these questions. And that first thing is to talk about TEDx. And how did you land your first talk?
Well, one of the wonderful things about TEDx, and your audience may or may not know, is TEDx, as the boots on the ground community level of TED Talks, is all run by volunteers. And I was just an ordinary person who loved TED Talks. So I was watching the videos all the time. And apparently I was raving about them a little more than I realized, because when I was doing my first master's degree, which was an executive MBA, someone said to me, there's TED Talks you're always talking about. We hear there's going to be a local event here in South Bank. There's only 100 seats in the audience. You've got to apply. Shall we apply? And I'm like, yes. So I applied, I got a spot, I went along. Just before I went, a couple of days beforehand, I started to get a little bit nervous because I love TED. What if I go to this event and it's not fabulous? And will that diminish my love of TED? And I had nothing to worry about because it was magnificent.
Yeah.
And I was hooked. I was like, oh my gosh, TEDx is the most amazing thing in the world. And about 6 weeks later, I quit my job because there was a confluence of things, but that was certainly a big part of it. I'd seen these inspiring and formidable and talented people on the stage talking about how they had, set themselves bold and audacious goals and struck out to achieve them. And I'm like, I don't want to be in the audience. I want to be that person. So I quit my job and, that was great. But the next year, so that was 2012, I was in the audience. 2013, they asked me to volunteer. So I volunteered as part of the team. 2014, they asked me to do my own TEDx talk. So I was invited. I talked about what I was focusing my work on at that time, which was the way we fund charities. And then in 2015, the person who was running that local event, an amazing woman called Laura Stokes, she phoned me up and said she'd been offered an amazing opportunity to go and work a contract role in London working for Richard Branson. So you say yes, and said, we'd like you to take over running TEDx Brisbane. Oh, well, at the time it was TEDx South Bank. And I said, I thought about it for a little bit. I had to, let my husband know. I told him like literally 3 days earlier, I'd finished my second master's. I'm like, I'm just going to really slow it down now and not do anything crazy for a while. It was like 3 days later. And I thought, honey, remember when I said that? And I really did mean it. But now I've been asked to run a TEDx. So I said yes. And I've been running it since 2015. So,
wow.
And a lot of people actually in our TEDx Brisbane community, we have volunteers now who did a talk and now they're volunteers. So we have people, one of the people who was a speaker and was quite nervous speaker, almost didn't make it to the stage.
Wow.
He now works as our green room manager because he's been there and he knows what it's like. So he's wonderfully supportive. So, and we have a lot of people who have been speakers, now they're volunteers, or, they've been in the audience and then they win our 1 minute pitch competition and go on and give actual talks. There are lots of ways to get involved and eventually become a TEDx speaker.
Fantastic. So how can our audience use public speaking to build and consolidate and really amplify their personal brands?
Great question. I am incredibly biased, full disclosure. But having said that, I will tell you that public speaking is one of the absolute hands down best ways to establish yourself as an expert in your field, which will put you in front of bigger audiences, will give you the credibility, like instant credibility boost, and will make people trust you, know your work, and be more likely to buy from you. So there are multiple ways in which that happens. And this comes from somebody who originally started out hating public speaking, but now sees the value of it. And public speaking is still not my favorite thing to do, but I do it because I know the returns are amazing. Done well, the returns are amazing. So there is almost nothing that you can do that gives you the same immediate boost as somebody else running an event, particularly if it's a really credible event. So if it's the leading event in your particular industry, or if it's a TEDx, or if it's South by Southwest, or some similar high profile, well-branded and established brand, as soon as those people who are running that event put you on the stage and say you're an expert at what you do, then that is a huge credibility boost. And that immediately gives you that status for yourself and for your brand. Trade shows and trade specific events are one of the most unappreciated and misunderstood high value public speaking events for your brand. I often talk to people and I say, what are the leading conferences in your industry? And often they won't know. I'll say locally, nationally, internationally. They'll know all about who their target audience is on social media, and they'll talk about lookalike audiences and all of this. I'm like, that's all amazing. But when you go to a trade conference, somebody else has done all the work to bring together your ideal customers into the room, and you didn't need to market to them. You didn't need to deal with their dietary requirements. You didn't need to put them up in hotels. Someone has done that work for you. You'd be crazy not to go, oh my gosh, who is my target ideal customer? and where do they all gather together at a conference? And I need to get on that stage.
Such good advice. So when you talk about getting out there in front of people, I often talk about the speech having stories. So talk to us about how you make that speech memorable.
Wow. There are so many different ways to do that. Just like, there is no one great speech. There is no one single human. We are all, fabulously, individual. I think a really important thing is to always understand the audience. So a speech that will be memorable to an audience of accountants who are there and want to know about ways to make their businesses or their job at work run smoothly is going to be quite different to what will be memorable at a conference that's all about women feeling motivated in their workplace. So you've got to cast aside any idea that a signature keynote or a standard talk should be, do it once, set and forget. It's not going to serve you well. And also it's really disrespectful to the audience.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do is your goal to be memorable and highly engaging is for as many people as possible in that auditorium to prick their ears up and then go, oh my gosh, it's like this talk was written just for me, because it was. You will have done the research. So for example, if it was a women's conference and it was about, and your speech was promoting a course or coaching program where you help people deal with juggling the burden or the struggles of being both a parent and an entrepreneur. Been there, totally understand it.
Yeah.
If I opened and I spoke about something that told a story or gave a statistic about the challenges of that, or told something very personal about a struggle I'd had, and made it clear that I am speaking to women who are currently struggling to juggle parenting and careers, all the women who are your target audience in that would hear that and their ears would prick up.
Yeah.
And go, she understands me. She's talking to me. Oh my gosh, this conference was worth coming to just for this one presentation. They stop double screening. They'll stop checking their phones and they'll dial in. So the best way you can be memorable is to honor the audience, do your research in advance and think, who is going to be in this room? And you should know that before you ever say yes to speaking, because if they're not your target audience and they can't help you achieve your strategic objective, why on earth are you speaking there? So what do you know about them? Who are they? What do they need? How can you help them? And then tell them that. Make them feel like your talk was written just for them.
Yeah. And I know sometimes I get asked to speak places and you have the option of being online or in person, and that understanding or knowing when you walk in the room if those are your audience, because I certainly have walked in the room and I was supposed to have a certain group, but in my networking before I got on stage, I found that, well, there's a little bit different, and my speech was altered just a little bit to make them feel like I was speaking just to them. But sometimes that can be tricky whenever you do those online where you don't know who is truly in the audience.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, some things, I do to try and help with that is I ask really quite probing questions, first of all, about who is your audience, who are going to be there. I'll look back at the hashtag from the previous year on socials, and then I will go and do a search page, but of that social hashtag, to make sure I can see who attended. Are these people really the people that I want, that are my, target audience? And then if it's a multi-day conference, I mean, sometimes they'll say, look, we want you to open and give the opening keynote, and you say yes. But if it's a talk anywhere else in the schedule that's not, then I always say, can I please speak on the second day?
Yeah.
And the reason I want to speak on the second day is that I want to spend the first day talking to people. I want to spend the first day in the crowd. I want to listen to people. And
Yeah.
there are two parts is to absolutely know who's in the room and get a good feel of that. So overnight I can make any tweaks, just as you do. But the other part is about production. So I will look sometimes and go, where are their audio dead zones? Where are a microphone set up or a screen set up not working? And then I'll be the brash and sassy speaker who on day 2 will walk in and say, hi, I'm always very, very kind to the tech team, but I'll say, hey, look, can I possibly have, first of all, I hate lecterns. So anytime you can not speak behind a lectern, don't. Because the
Absolutely.
lectern provides a barrier. It's an instant barrier between you and your audience, and that's not engaging and it's not authentic. But if you have to have screens or you have to have microphones and they say, look, we're not set up for headsets, there's going to have to be a lectern with a mic. And I've been that person who says, I need you to move this lectern to the other stage, please, because on this stage you can hear the basketball sound from, somebody's activation space that still runs during sessions. So, be that person. And as long as you're kind and, bring muffins with you or a cup of coffee, it's usually fine. But yes, so I try that. And in terms of online, one of the things that I didn't do when I first started speaking online, because we were all learning, but now I do, is I find that if a lot of events now will open up the online chat boards about a day beforehand. And so I will be sure to jump in and have a look at that chat. And I will look at who are the most active people. I'll go check them out on LinkedIn. Okay, this is, who you are, what you're looking forward to, what industry. And then if I need to make any adjustments, I do.
That's
Because
excellent
it
advice.
pays off.
So this is a classic thing, and I teach youth as well as adults, and you really see this quite often whenever people are just dipping their toe in public speaking formally or coaching of it. And that is, what do I do when I forget what to say? And I know what I always tell people, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
First of all, you should always plan for dead air. You should always have a dead air plan. So I do that with all of my speakers, including all of our TEDx speakers. And the day before our event and in the weeks leading up to our event, we coach our TEDx speakers for about 5 months before they're on stage. So it is a long process. There's easily 100 hours worth of work with each speaker. So, the polished end, that didn't just magically happen. They didn't just walk on stage like that. That's a lot of training, but we're training them for life. So we want them to deliver a great, talk on that day. But we very much have, as part of my mission and our TEDx's mission, and every TEDx is different, but we want to give them the tools because we believe in them and their idea to go and champion that in any room on any stage for the rest of their life. One of those tools we give them is what to do when you forget your lines or you lose your place or there's dead air. And then we train them in it and we run through it. So for TEDx, for example, we will have very specific things. So we'll say, we won't rush you or intervene until you've absolutely decided you've got nothing. So we tell them to, they are in control. We constantly stress you're in control. So we tell them to look down. You should always look down when you lose your line, because look down looks like this is so emotional and it's, I'm really pondering this and it's heartfelt and I'm just regrouping. Looking up is like, oh my goodness, somebody, divine intervention. I don't know what I'm doing. So yeah, always look down. And then with our TEDx speakers, we say, you tell us when you need something. And then we have a line script reader who will have this thing line by line. And we'll come out and we'll point it to them very slowly. And we rehearse this. And then even when the speaker says, I've got this, usually don't. So the person will make them look at the next few lines as well and then walk off. But the most important part of that, and even when it's not on a TEDx stage, it's just in a presentation, is to have a joke. Usually one that makes people builds empathy. So the one we usually use is they take a deep breath and then say, "This was so much easier when I was practicing in the shower." It immediately makes people giggle. It puts people at ease and they have empathy,
Yeah.
because if they don't like public speaking either, which is the majority of the population, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, I can imagine. So then they're on your side, the
Mm-hmm.
side of the speaker. They want that speaker to do well. The
Yeah.
speaker has a chance to feel the warmth from the audience as they laugh with them, not at them. They have a chance to, take a moment, have a
Yeah.
regroup, remember where they are, and then start again. And it works beautifully. One of my clients, she had to give this very major presentation to some very traditional, stoic, most senior police from across all of Australia. And she's like, I'm going to forget my lines. I'm going to forget something at some point. And so we had this. We used the shower line. She had that moment. She delivered it. She said instantly the entire room warmed up from being
Mm-hmm.
very stoic and let's get to business and policing and making the world a better place to suddenly a bit more human. And they all smiled and they're all on board. And then it became lighter. She regrouped. She worked out where she was. She continued. And
Mm-hmm.
she said that was like an incredibly supportive audience. And they said yes to her strategic objectives. She had two.
Nice.
They said yes to both and wanted to fast track them. And
Oh.
also, the person who had invited her to speak that arranged the whole meeting said to her afterwards, that is the most engaged she had ever seen this particular group of
Mm-hmm.
people with any speaker.
Oh,
And
wow.
we were speaking afterwards, and I said, do you think it would have gone that well if you hadn't had that very human moment? And she said,
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah.
So I always tell people I'm a recovering perfectionist. So used to me, for me, I used to be 100, it had to be 100% perfect all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I now, and I have it on mugs and I tell all the people I coach, you're now, it's a real Juanita-ism. You're now aiming for 80% perfection and 20% authentic human moments.
Yeah.
Because that's often where the magic is. And, that
Mm-hmm.
example of that presentation was, you know, case in point,
Yeah.
that's where the magic happened.
So true. And whenever others see that you aren't perfect, that you failed but got back up, and it just makes them think, well, I could do that too then. She's not that special. And that's what we want. We want everybody to feel more comfortable. So
Yes,
time's
and that's
flying
so
by.
important. I think what you just said is so incredibly important and so misunderstood and underappreciated. I think there are people who still think that when people in the audience look to public speakers, they still want that word perfect dramatic monologue with,
Yeah.
vocal tones and hand gestures. And that absolutely, up until the point where we had social media and alike, sure. The 80s, the 90s, many centuries ago. But now we have, in part because of social media, this deeper connection with the people that we follow and we're associated
Mm.
with and that we admire. And so we see them in far more authentic settings. So that's absolutely has come across to the way we engage with people when they're public speaking. We
Yeah.
do not want to be lectured at in a dramatic monologue that is word perfect and feels scripted like someone's grade 12 speech and drama class. We want an authentic engagement. And like you said, when they're human and you feel like you could do that too, and they feel relaxed and it's more like a conversation. So
Yeah.
you're spot on. And I think it's so grotesquely underappreciated that there has been this dramatic transition in
Hmm.
from our public speakers when we're in the audience.
Yeah. I believe that so much. I own the URLs. It's just a conversation.org, not com, .net, because I truly believe that. I always coach that it's a roller coaster ride you take them on. Sometimes people come up and they want to be like that preacher that's out there and it's at 10 the whole time, and it exhausts the audience. It really and truly does. That you do have to understand and appreciate the softness of a voice can make much more impact than screaming at them.
I just had someone fly into Brisbane to run through their initial script. They were really quite happy with it, and they did a delivery for me, and they wanted my feedback. And I just had to say to them at the end, I really love your idea, but what you've just done is a dramatic monologue from a play or a theatre. You have not just done a keynote or a talk delivery. You've just they're very different.
Preach
If
to
you could go
them,
and do that on stage as part of theatrical production, it was very, King Henry, it would be great. But it's not that. You're not wanting that. You're wanting people to come on a journey with you and say yes at the end. You're wanting to persuade them. You're wanting it to be a conversation. This was not a conversation. It was a dramatic monologue.
So many great points, and I know the audience is going to want to connect with you. So as always, I will share my slide with the contact information. If you are just listening, you know the drill. You should have been taking notes all along, but go ahead, grab that paper and pencil. If you don't have that ability to do so right now, you can get all of this on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please subscribe, or you can subscribe to my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So that website is fullandfrank.com. Again, fullandfrank.com. Facebook is, again, Full and Frank. That's AND if I'm not pronouncing it clearly. Fullandfrank.com. And then also LinkedIn is her name, Juanita Wheeler. And Instagram is, again, The Full and Frank. I'm going to turn it over to Juanita. She'll talk to you about what you can find on her website as well as a social media that may help you, resources, links, etc. Juanita?
Thank you so much, Vicki. One of the best places to start is you can head to the website, go to fullandfrank.com/tools. And there's a range of tools there that can, including a number of free guides on how to get started with public speaking, and more importantly, how to grow your business with public speaking, as well as the ability to sign up to my newsletter. Now, if you sign up to my newsletter, you can get access to my open calls for speakers list, where I list all open calls for speakers globally that have come across into my inbox. At any given time, there's anywhere between 50 and 150 events currently looking for speakers, which might be you.
Juanita, it's been just such a pleasure chatting with you. You gave wonderful advice, and I look forward to us trying to do some more things together in the future. But thanks for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight speaking with you and with your audience.
Thank you. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.